Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 24th SF Doc Fest. We're so excited to have you all here. I'm Sarah Marie Flores. I curate the shorts for the program. The festival will be happening May 29th through June 8th, virtually in your computer screens, which is how you folks are watching this, as well as programs live in San Francisco at the Roxy and Vogue Theaters. Thank you so much to our art and tech filmmakers for joining us today. I would love to kick things off by just asking you to tell us your name, the film that you're here with, what you did on the film, and what the genesis of the project was for you. And we'll start off with Anna. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me and including me in this block. My name is Anna Quinlan. I'm the director and editor of The Wilhelm Scream. And the way this project came about was being a lifelong Wilhelm Scream lover, noticer, and eventually realizing that I could see if I could just ask all the sound designers that use the Wilhelm Scream what it means to them. And once that idea popped in my head, I was kind of off to the races. And my kind of collaborator, Steve Lee, who's also in the film, he was kind of my first contact. I kept thinking somebody else would have already made the film, somebody else would have already made the Wilhelm Scream story, and no one quite had in the extensive way that we managed to. So, yeah, started the journey just reaching out to people and talking to people, and it just grew and grew and grew. And I developed a great friendship with Steve, and that's kind of what you see in the film.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Anna. Hi, Paul. Welcome.
Hi, yeah, my name is Paul Barassa, and I was the director, producer, and editor of Art Born of Silicon. So how the movie came about is in about from 2018 to 2022, I completed a computer science degree, and I kind of got a first glance at a lot of the AI technology that's kind of taken up a lot of news recently. And as we all know, the potential of this technology is fast, but it also has hindrances to people's career and so forth. And there's questions about copyright and whether the use of this technology is ethical. And I decided to make a short documentary kind of tackling those questions, having people, local people from the digital arts community in Ottawa come and kind of talk about how they view the technology and how they think it's going to be used in the future, and kind of explore like this point in filmmaking where, like, for the first time since I think the turn from shooting on film to shooting on digital, I kind of see that right now where people are finding new ways to make films, and kind of asking the question of like whether the progression into this new medium is something that we ought to be doing.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Paul. Hi, Vaughn. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Van Kochar, and I'm a director of UTV, the one before YouTube. I think the title explains it all. This is about an enterprise in the 80s that kind of foresaw the coming of social media. And this was the first time, the first attempt to create social media and user-generated video platform. But because this was before technology, they used the cable television instead.
And,
So this is a film about something that happened before
and
it.
Vaughn, why did you want to tell this particular story?
Well, I met the founder of this enterprise, Norman Solomon, and I was working with him on photographic collections. He represented a lot of famous photographers like Helmut Newton. And I was doing a video project about that. And he said, I invented YouTube. And I'm like, what? Like, you sound like a very serious person. You can't be saying that. And then he showed the whole material, that there was this TV show in the 80s, and we started the research, and he actually did invent YouTube before YouTube. So that was kind of the genesis of this project. And we interviewed all the people who were involved, and they were all over the world, from France to Germany, Canada. And but that was kind of like in conversation, and casually mentioned something that was a moment in time. It didn't materialize, obviously, because there was no internet. But it was just kind of in a conversation it came up, and one thing led to another.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And welcome, Jack and Jamie. Please introduce yourselves, your film, what you did on it, and why you wanted to tell this story. Oh, Jack, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm Jack Becker. I'm the producer for Inventing for a Goal, the Garrett Brown story. We are partners with the United States Patent and Trade Office, and it's both our mission at the National Inventors Hall of Fame and the USPTO's mission to honor and amplify amazing inventors and tell their stories in a powerful way that we can. And when we started talking about Garrett Brown being one of the people for our stories, it was really a moment we were excited through the roof, to be honest with you. And I'm sure this panel can understand Garrett Brown's impact on the industry. He was the inventor of the Steadicam, and among many other inventions that he had, but that was the first. And it impacted movies like Rocky and The Shining, and so many other films that he worked on, that it really revolutionized the industry. And he's a visionary in the movie business, and he's a visionary inventor. And he's an inventor who really sort of made it in his basement. You know, you kind of think about somebody who grabs some tools and grabs some materials and tries to make something work and change the way things operate. And that's what he did. And he ended up changing everything in our industry. Yeah, it was an amazing experience to try and work on this film and put it together for him. Jamie.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you so much.
Jamie.
Hi, Jamie, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. And I work with Jack, and we look for these incredible stories of American ingenuity. And so when the United States Patent and Trademark Office wanted to feature this particular story and really expand it, we were so excited to be able to create this piece. I wanted it for years because we've always featured Garrett as an icon inventor in our invention education programs. And so to be able to tell this more complete story is really quite an honor. And he's always challenging the kids to race him to the patent office. So fun to have this.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for joining us. I mean, it's no question that we're kind of at this watershed moment, at this intersection of technology and media arts, right? Like, a lot of what we're doing is under attack. The industry is contracting in a way that I think from the consumer level is definitely felt. As somebody who actively works within the Hollywood system, I can say that it is brutal. It is a very interesting time to really think about how we work as filmmakers, how we intersect with technology, and doing that while looking forward, but also taking a look at the past of how these things come together. Anna, to jump back over to you, like, can you just talk about what it felt like to kind of use these like modern technologies to uncover the history of the screen? Like, obviously, for any of us that have ever taken like an intro editing class, I think it's like the first sound file they give you to play with. Like, what was this like? It's almost like, you know, discovering like a hero in some ways, which is maybe silly, but like, it's so ingrained, I think, in all of us who think about how we put together soundscapes and how we're editing together our pieces, that it's just like so cool to see this snapshot and also see the folks that help kind of like lionize this in pop culture.
Absolutely. And I think I learned so much about film tech through the process of making the film. You know, the people in the film were making soundtracks in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and when everything was, you know, these giant dub stages and kind of running things through moviolas and all these old things. And it was fascinating to realize how different the process is now. Part of why the Wilhelm scream is as used as it is. I did a crazy amount of research where I went through all of the titles that use it, and I made I wanted to kind of like a visualization of the data to see where it really got the most prominent. And the year with the most usage in kind of mainstream work was 2007, which I think had to do with the internet and the fact that that made the file more accessible. In the past, you would have had to work with these specific sound studios to even get it. So now everyone had it, and that really kind of amped up the use of it. But speaking also of using modern technology in the film, you see that we work with a vocal forensic analyst to identify for the first time, fully identify who the screamer is using kind of new research in vocal forensics. And that was really great. That was something that couldn't have been done back when these guys were really obsessed with it. And so it was fun to bring something new to the story as well, using kind of like a modern research, kind of arm.
So cool. Thank you. Thank you for your work in uncovering this mystery. That's so exciting.
Forensics is a great phrase.
Yes, right? Vocal forensics.
Oh, I mean, what can we even say about AI, right? Like, we live in this very strange time where, to some degree, AI has been made to be kind of the boogeyman in some regards. While also we have like Elon Musk funded AI that's actively like telling people false narratives about South African genocides that are happening, right? Like,
Yeah.
it just comes back to this core of the thing that is the most scary about technology is sometimes not the thing that we talk about, right? The technology in itself is not inherently evil. It is the fact that it can be used for systems of oppression that make it so dangerous. And that's the part that we are not saying out loud quite enough. However, the filmmaker Lily Wachowski has said this when she was one of the Time Top 100 on technology the year before last. It's how you use the technology that is dangerous. Last year, the Tribeca Film Festival actually had a whole block of programming that focused on using AI for those from underserved communities without resources to still tell bountiful stories, which I think is really inspiring. And I think it ties into a lot of your film. Can you talk a little bit more about how you think about this like intersection between artistry and technology and how you access that in your storytelling?
Yeah, so I feel like when a lot of these tech like owners started developing this technology, they didn't stop and think like, why should we make this technology? They just thought, can we make this technology? So we kind of have a situation where we have this new form of filmmaking, if you want to call it that. And up until this point, no one's really stopped to think like, is this something that's going to add to the industry, or is something that's going to distract from the industry? And the way I view it right now is like, it does give people who may not have certain like resources and opportunities a chance to make films they weren't able to make before. For example, if you want to shoot like a beautiful skyline of like California or something, and you don't have the funds to hire like a drone operator, you could do that with AI. So some people view it as an opportunity for people who haven't had the means to do so now. But I also view it as something that could take away from jobs, like especially in VFX. A lot of people are worried that this technology is going to be used to replace a lot of people who work on visual effects, a lot of people who, like, if you look at like stock images, websites that offer like stock images to people, if you go on those websites right now, half of the content is AI already. So it's just a question of like, how are we going to regulate this technology? Because I don't think it's going anywhere. Like once the cat is out of the bag, it's kind of like a question of how do we manage it. So I feel like the goal going forward should be, how do we protect people's jobs, and how do we ensure that people are not being exploited by this technology? I don't think we want to get to the point where like an actor's face is being projected onto somebody else and they didn't give the consent to do that, and people are using AI technology to kind of like exploit people's likeness and so forth. So we really need a way to regulate this technology so people are not exploited for their work and people still have an opportunity to contribute to this art form. And it's not just people typing into a computer and you have a film. And I think that's why I quite like documentary filmmaking. It's a bit different from narrative filmmaking because in narrative filmmaking, there's a script and you kind of invent a story. But in documentary filmmaking, you're going out into the world and seeking the story. And it's not quite obvious how you would do that with AI technology because in documentary, you interview people in real life, you capture on-ground situations. So I feel like documentary filmmaking going forward is kind of like has an opportunity to be like a contrast to people who might be adopting AI technology in the filmmaking.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Vaughn, I think your film very much so is like looking backwards at innovations. So can you talk a little bit about kind of uncovering the story of UTV and like drawing these parallels about how ahead of its time it was and where we are now in terms of the
Sure.
revolution that YouTube brought to us?
Well, I think as Paul was mentioning, it's very important not to lose that human component in all of this. In the end, like we're not creating these things for robots; we're creating for other humans. And I think to kind of going back to the original question, what drew me to this, in order to kind of expand on those parallels, it was the people who were behind it. The personalities who created UTV. These were people with genuine experiences. Norman was a Vietnam veteran who, after returning after his tour of duty, he joined the hippie movement in San Francisco. Then he traveled to France, and spent some time there and working on projects. And this is basically this was an enterprise created, but by real people with real experiences who valued the real experience and the way those experiences connect people globally. This is the time before that kind of global connection was possible. But because this invention was coming from their own experience, the whole ethical and moral aspect was different, and it's just kind of like showed you can be disruptive, you can be innovative without being a jerk about it, and that kind of what I followed, that human component was an interesting point here in the way these people connected globally. They were friends, they were people with shared experiences, and they saw the value of telling each other stories. So this technology came naturally from that urge to travel, to connect, to erase boundaries by people with real experiences. So it was not done by technical people. It was done by people who just felt it's important to connect, and the technology wasn't even there. So with UTV, it's more about how people come together to create something, and the technology is in a way secondary. And in their case, it wasn't even there. So it's not the technology that starts the innovation; it's human experience that begins the process. And then if they're lucky, the technology is there. And they were kind of lucky the technology wasn't there. So they tried to connect with the means they had. So that's in a nutshell how it developed. And because they were not technological people, they were not tech people, and technology wasn't there, it fell apart pretty quickly. So there is that too. Oh, I lost my license, so just gonna turn that on real quick. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Jack and Jamie, I mean, I apologize if I would be remiss if I don't mention what is currently happening in this country right now. Right? Last week we saw the Librarian of Congress removed from her position, which some can say is maybe a clear attack in getting into the copyright systems and being able to rewrite that history. From that perspective, like why is it so important to highlight innovation between technology in this moment, and how does that really kind of factor into the subjects that you've decided to showcase within your series?
Well, you paired us well with Anna, Paul, and Vaughn, because they said all of the, words that we think about with science, technology, innovation, touching on intellectual property. And what's so amazing is you take a story like Garrett Brown's and it has the ingredients of all of those pieces. And so, especially when we think about intellectual property and valuing our ideas, we're always looking to both honor and celebrate our inductees, but do it so that in a way that we can really challenge the next generation of innovators, and especially help youth understand that your ideas matter and they have value. And here's how you can go about sort of protecting those, as well as getting them out into the world. And so we're always looking to, as we tell a story like Garrett's, show some of that. I mean, he was talking about being a 9-year-old in bed and the art of thinking and all of the reading, and how you're not going to find ideas on a screen that don't exist yet. So it's really about setting people up to know that that's coming from within, and here's how you can make your way out into the world and really make your mark.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to add to that, there's, part of the story that we try and tell about inventors is you want to protect the idea of your invention, but you also sort of want to think about it as like a block of and sort of side ideas and other things that could come and grow over time, and you want to protect that whole block of ideas, and how that as your maybe idea develops and grows over time, it's protected in multiple ways. So those are trying to get those parts of stories out, and some of the stories that we tell too are, I think, very important to us, as well as the USPTO. I did want to add something in, as some of the other members of the panel were talking about how things change with AI, and Garrett actually told us a story about the movie Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, and it didn't make the film. It's was one of those painful cuts out of the film. And so, as I'm sure you guys have all had that. But he told this story about being on the rope bridge on the Temple of Doom, and Harrison Ford fell through a board almost and almost went down into the gorge. And he brought Steven Spielberg out and made him look exactly where he fell and almost fell. And they had to do work on the bridge and everything. But Garrett sort of diverted, and he said, that rope bridge wouldn't be made today. It would all be done with AI. So all those people that worked on that bridge and strung it across that gorge, and then it was a literal, actual swinging bridge, would all be done with AI now. And so, he was sort of feeling, reminiscing about that, and sort of the advances. But so the advances are exciting, but they do take away a little bit of some of that reality of what we all do. That I think those of us that do it want to maybe hold on to that and keep that.
Yeah,
keep the village.
And there's that space for both authenticity and exploring the grand possibilities. So, Paul, you're helping us think about like how can we have a yes and here?
It's beautiful. Well, thank you both so much. I mean, I will just mention we have another film in one of our other programs called A Man Comes Down, which is the story of a man who's been paralyzed. He has no motion at all. And it was only until technology was able to give him the ability to type using eyesight that he's since been able to continue to communicate with his family and also finish the screenplay that he had been working on prior to his catastrophic stroke and is still intending to direct his film. We also have another film in the festival that highlights the filmmaker Miranda July, who early in her day started a program essentially where she would have folks send them their films on videotape, and she would dub them all onto a larger like kind of mixtape essentially, and share them in that way because there was no YouTube or UTV wasn't accessible to them. But all of these things are about us finding ways to share and create through innovation. And so it's really special to get to highlight all of your stories today. So thank you so much for joining us. This is all the time we have. But we're so happy to get to share your films, and thank you for joining us to chat about them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate the
Take care,
time.
everyone.